How many times can you reuse the same Lego set? If you'd asked me that as a kid, I would have first asked, why is this stranger asking me questions? But ultimately, the question would have made sense to me. What do you mean? You can take this thing apart and rebuild it every single which way for basically forever. The same thing is true for content for digital marketers. As marketers, sometimes we have this tendency, especially in the political space, to get something across the finish line and then move on to the next project. The tyranny of the urgent takes over, and we miss opportunities to continue to reuse and repurpose that content that we've had. Howdy, I'm Mike Morrison. I've been working in the political space for more than 10 years now, and I'm excited to dig into how to repurpose your content. So what is content repurposing? Content repurposing fundamentally is not original content creation. Content repurposing is taking a keystone centerpiece of content, whether it's a video, a blog, a report, an op-ed, something that is of significant weight, and then turning that into social content that stretches for significantly longer. It's taking that big Lego, right, and breaking it down into a lot of smaller opportunities for you to continue using that content over and over and over again into the future. So you've got 3 questions that you're going to need to ask yourself. What is the purpose of this content? Who is this for? And third, what are they supposed to do with it? After you have understand the purpose, align it with the target audience, what do you want them to do with it? What actions do you want them to take? It's not just enough to share the information and get it in front of them. By clearly understanding your goals, defining your audience, and understanding what actions you want them to take, you'll have much sharper pieces of content that are going to be able to be significantly more effective for your organization or your campaign or your candidate or whoever you're working for. Narrowing the scope of your focus helps to keep you really tuned in to what's important. It helps you make sure that you're not wasting time. There are a bunch of wonderful ideas that just don't deserve to be executed. What is the next most valuable thing for you to be doing? Spending more time repurposing content might keep you away from doing something more valuable. So make sure to balance that and understand that you have other priorities. Okay, time for a gut check. Do you have the knowledge to repurpose this content? There are some things in the political space that require more public policy experience to know what's important and what's not. Do you have a strong partnership with the policy leaders or the folks that have the best knowledge on this situation? Sometimes something that makes sense to cut might not when you finally loop in policy and understand some of the behind the scenes. You don't need a PhD to do this, but make sure that you've got a good grasp on it, that you know where to ask for help. Here's what I think about content repurposing for individuals, organizations, campaigns, from the most intensive to the least intensive kinds of products that you can build. Up first, let's talk about some video. First, green screen video. You've seen this kind of commentary video before. Somebody records themselves, usually with a cell phone. They are green screened out, and they've got usually like a content or video behind them that they're commenting on. They'll be like pointing up at it, talking about what's behind them and reacting to it. This is, generally speaking, something that's fairly easy to do if you're ready to be on camera. One of the great things about this is because of this green screen technique, it lowers the quality of your video. So you don't actually have to have like a crazy setup. A selfie cam is more than sufficient for this. You could do this with a cell phone. The most important thing here is your audio quality. If you have strong audio, people are much more likely to listen to what you have to say and to watch what you have to say. If you're working with a video product already, reformatting that horizontal video into vertical, it's a great opportunity. There's some really excellent tools out right now that are AI powered to be able to create these cut downs automatically for you. I'm fond of Opus Clips. They're not sponsoring me yet, but they totally can. Feel free to reach out. They are one that I use day to day. Great way to add captions quickly. It automatically generates what it thinks is the most compelling based off of the conversation and what's trending in social media. That's hit or miss sometimes for us on the political context, but you can also just use it just to add captions. If you pre-cut the video that you know you want to add captions to, provide it to Opus Clips. It usually takes about 15 minutes, and then you've got a vertical video ready. The downside of these is they're not really made for organic vertical social platforms, right? They're not really native to TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. They're just horizontal videos that have been cut down into vertical. There's definitely value to that, but I wouldn't consider it the end all be all. Try to figure out ways to do native vertical. It's an additional content pillar for you, but it standing alone is not going to be strong enough. Next up, audiograms. Awesome if you've been on a podcast, you can take that audio, drop it into a captioning tool or drop it into Canva or something like that, add a waveform audio, and then now you've got a video. Adding some compelling graphics can be helpful, but just text on screen can be frequently sufficient. Wouldn't make these too long, but this is a great opportunity to quickly turn those into additional pieces of content. Quote graphics, bread and butter of organizations and individuals, right? Take a quote from your principal, from your candidate, from your CEO, whomever that you're working with or representing, turn that into a quick quote graphic with a Canva template or with an existing template that you're working with. And you can really easily generate like 3 to 5 of these depending on how long the piece is and depending on how quotable the person that you're working with is. Again, if this is everything that you're posting, they're going to get pretty stale pretty quick, especially if you're using templatized tools. But they're a great way to take the words that have already been said or already been written and repurpose them. It's also a great way to share content from partners or from coalition groups. All right, I call these big idea or big stack graphics. They are just a big friggin' number right in your face. So they've got a big line that helps people understand the point of the issue. It's a call to arms. It's something that you can get across in just a few lines. This is a great way to take either if there's a really concrete, succinct call to action that you can pull. If there's a big, flashy, scary number, then turn it into a single graphic. This can be enough to stop somebody while they're scrolling and get them to read the caption or get them to click through the link to fully understand the context. Context is important with this one too. You want enough that it stops people and makes people ask what this is and try to get a little more information, but not so little information that they just kind of scroll past because it doesn't make sense without actually seeing the whole thing. So balance those two as you're creating these. All right, I call these retweet graphics. Again, these are just dead simple. Take a tweet, take something somebody else said, and turn it into a quick graphic. There's a few different ways to do this. You can format it and make it all pretty. You can just take a screenshot of the thing and put it over a stock photo. There's a few real positives from this. Again, you can highlight the thought leaders. You can highlight coalition partners, external groups. It's a way to tweet without retweeting. Sometimes it's a way to showcase what's happening on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it now, on other platforms. It's also kind of a trial balloon, right? Tweets are cheap. It doesn't cost a lot to send out a tweet. So if you have a banger, if you have something that really popped off, take a screenshot of it and share it on your other platforms. Twitter can be a little bit of a test bed. You can tweet stuff, get rapid feedback on whether or not it's valuable, and try again pretty easily if you didn't get a great reaction. All right, next up is news or headline carousels. You're seeing journalistic outlets like the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, places like this using these pretty consistently. It consists of a headline, sometimes a lead with a big image. These are great, especially on Instagram as carousel. So you can do that first slide as that attention-grabbing image and lead and headline, swipe, and then the next slide there can be more in depth. So you could use a quote graphic there, right? Combo it up. You can even do it with a retweet graphic, or you could just drop the first paragraph in there. If you're quoting someone externally, obviously make sure that you're doing the right thing and quoting them correctly and highlighting the fact that those aren't your words. You're not plagiarizing those. But this is a great way to take those news posts, take those longer pieces of text and get them onto other platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Okay, last up, let's talk about threads. Threads are an awesome way to show behind the scenes. It's a great way to provide additional commentary and then use it as a way to include snippets of the content that they're going to be able to see. And then the last one, right, is the link to whole piece so that they can get the full story. They get a lot of it by engaging with a thread. This is a great one that you can offload and make other people do the work for you. Ask the author of the piece, ask whomever created the long form content to write this from their own pages and to post it from their pages, and then amplify them. As you're building your thread, make sure that you're following through on the promise. Make sure that each one is compelling and hooks people in their own way, encouraging people to go to the next tweet and to make sure to read the whole thing. It should keep drawing people further down the page and drawing people from post to post to post. All right, you thought you were done? Not yet. Next, you've got to measure, right? You've got to understand what was impactful, what was worth doing, what stood out to your audience. If you're not reporting, if you're not measuring, if you don't understand what you've done, then you are going to spend time unwisely. With as many stats and tools as we have at our fingertips in the social and digital world, it's really important to understand the effectiveness that we've had. There's so many great opportunities to continue building content that that drives people and motivates people to take compelling action in the political space. I'd love to talk to you more about it. Join me in the comments. I'd be happy to hear what you're working with. What pieces of content have you been really proud of? What ways have you been able to repurpose that long form content into other compelling tools? If you learned something today, hit that like button, share this with a friend that this might be helpful with. We'd love to start building a real community here that supports each other and helps build tools and capabilities for us to all be more successful.